Hey guys, I hope this video finds you well. Wish we would be doing this in class instead of in our living rooms, but it is what it is. But I wanted to kind of recap before we go into this for 4th grade. The 3rd grade that we watched last week when Krista did, and Carrie Lee did a great job, by the way. We're going to follow that concept of rounding tens and hundreds, and we're going to put a value on a place. And the thing with this standard was that I can recognize that in a multi-digit number, a digit in any one place represents 10 times what it is to the place value that's to the right of it. So this is showing kids the representation and the connection between a number that is 10 times more in a place value than the number that it is to the right of it. Alright, that being said, along with our lesson plan, which I'm sure you guys have looked at by now, this is an anchor chart I have made to go along with that standard and for kids to get a visual to see how this progresses. And there's a way to do it from left to right, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Alright, so of course when we're doing comparing this chart to a whole digit number, we're gonna start with ones, then our tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, and then finally the millions place. The way this works for kids to use, and you can give them this model for them to use on a little strip or whatever, or a little laminated sheet, you could do this. But to have this with your math lesson, you want it anchored to where all the kids can see it, okay? That's the whole point of this. So, the part that we're getting to is that the number on the right is always, when you're moving forward and the numbers get bigger, you're going to make sure that it's times 10 for every step that you go up, okay? And I've drawn that here for ones, times 10 to get this number, times 10 to get this, times 10, so on and so forth, okay? Alright, so that being said, say you have 4,000 some number, okay? The way to get this to show kids is if they need to write it out, and you're going to have those kids that are going to need to see it step by step, and that is fine. That is okay, because more than likely those kids are going to get it as opposed to some that fly through it and are going to miss it. So, let's say you have your 4 ones, and that's of course a number of 4. When you times that by 10, you're going to get your tens place, which is going to be 40. When you times 40 by 10, you're going to get 400. When you times 400 by 10, you're going to get 4,000. When you times 4,000 by 10, you're going to get 40,000. And so on and so forth until you get to millions. Of course, that's not expected till the end of this unit. But for the sake of this lesson and this time, we only made the lesson plan to where kids would at least get to the hundreds place and do it consistently and correctly as we go through this. Okay, and the manipulatives you can use, of course, are your base 10 blocks. And I've drawn those out, and I actually have some sitting somewhere. But we're going to do that part. Alright. Now, the activity is called Name That Digit. Okay, so the things that you're going to need, if you have those kids that need something solid, concrete, a manipulative, give them the base 10 blocks or the strips of paper, whatever it takes for them to get this to use. Give it to them. And we wanted to use this either as a worksheet they could do, or I like the idea of math journals, something that they have in their desk or on their desk during math all the time, something consistent. Okay, everybody get your math journals out, draw this chart, okay? And they're going to have that they can go back to and look at, and they keep it. And that way, keeping a math journal, like all these lessons are building on each other, they can go back and say, oh, I remember when we did that last week. And they can go back and look at it and flip back a page or two. And this is going to be there for them to use later on if they need it. Okay, so for an example, I've got the number 888 up here. Okay, this is the chart. And if you want to pre-make these and cut them, let them cut them out and paste them in their journal, that is totally fine too. All right, so you have 888, and like I said, we're going to try to master hundreds. If they can do thousands, that's great, but we're going to worry about hundreds for right now. All right, the way that I was going to do this was students can use this as a worksheet or draw the chart in their journal or cut and paste it however you need to. They can work on this either independently or with a partner, especially when you're doing an introductory lesson for math. If you want to let them work in a group, small group, pair up, that way it frees us up as teachers to walk around the room and make sure that they're actually doing the work and that they're doing it correctly. And it gives us a little free time to look around and see how it's going. So with a partner, they're going to determine the value of each digit and record it here. Okay, so they're going to break this number apart. And using the times 10 method, they're going to build and create 888. So you're going to want to kind of prompt them along if they need it. Some may not. But you can ask them, what did you notice about the value of the digits going from left to right? And when they can tell you that concretely, okay, then let's look at it from the opposite. If you did times 10 going up to make the number smaller, what do you think would happen if you decompose the number backwards? Would you still multiply or would you divide it by 10? And that's where we're going with this in a few minutes. And then go backwards from right to left. Students will hopefully observe the concept of timesing 10, each number timesing 10. Hopefully they're going to get that and not just say, oh, you just add a 0 every time. To me, they're not getting the concept. They're not understanding why they're getting that number. They're just realizing, oh, I add a 0 every time. But that's not showing that they understand why, and that's really not giving them the value of that number. Okay? Alright, so does the value, this is another essential question that you could use. Did the value go up or down when you went right or left? Okay. And I've got arrows there to show us that. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm going to do it down that way. Alright, so when you've got down here, this is hopefully what you're going to get from a student, from their work. Yes, they realize that 8 ones come first, and then you times 10 to get 80, and then times 10 again to get 800, and when you write that number out, you get 888. Okay, so that's how this is supposed to go. All right. Now, using the manipulatives, base 10 blocks. I've got another example of how you are dividing by 10, going one way to have a lesser number, timesing it the way we've been doing to get a bigger number. Okay. Ones, tens, hundreds, and then thousands are usually in cube form. Okay, and this is ultimately where we want to get with this lesson. And then even to millions would probably be something towards the end, like I mentioned before. But students will be able to take these numbers, even numbers with millions, and be able to use that chart, break it apart, and if they have to do it one step at a time, times it by 10, let them. That's okay. That's the whole purpose and point of this, okay? And then show them, you know, opposite, going backwards. We're going to divide by 10 every time, which was actually the example for the standards for this that you'll see on our lesson plan. I think the example was 700 divided by 10, or 7,000 divided by 10, but that shows that numbers going this way to the left, or from the left to the right, are always going to be bigger when you're timesing by 10 every time. And that's foolproof. That's something they can actually sit down, do on their paper that's going to give them the concrete answer. As for rounding, it was kind of guessing and estimating. This takes all the guessing and estimating out of it and shows them that there's an actual value to a number in a certain place. Okay. I hope this wasn't too scattered and messy, but it is what it is, and it was a fairly simple standard in a way, but that the way that it goes shows that students will be able to show you a number that is 10 times more than the number 2 is right, and that there's an actual value to a number in a certain place. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and maybe it cleared some things up for standards on 4.